In this video, we're going to talk about the new membership capabilities of ASP.NET 2.0, as well as the login controls in the toolbox that encapsulate much of this new functionality and allow you to take advantage of it with virtually no code. As I'm going to highlight later in the video, you have full programmatic control through the membership class's rich API. However, if you just want to wade in the shallow end before diving off the diving board, then this video is going to show you what you need to know in order to get started. So what exactly is membership? Well, in its most simple form, it's just a set of classes in the .NET framework, as well as a set of controls and utilities in the website administration tool that allow you to easily create a members-only area of your website. So if you require registration or payment before somebody can access your website, or if you just want to keep your website content private to a select few individuals, then you can accomplish this pretty quickly using this feature of ASP.NET, which is new to actually the 2.0 version. First of all, the membership features of ASP.NET 2.0 are based on the concept of role-based security. And if you're not familiar with this, it's basically a concept that differentiates between authenticating you, that you are who you say you are, and authorizing you to view resources or take action on the website. So let me clarify this. Basically, when you go to a website, sometimes you have to log into the website by typing a combination of your username and your password. And this combination of credentials proves that you are who you say you are. Now, obviously, unless somebody has stolen your user ID and password, but that's a whole other issue altogether. So now the website knows who you are. But now it has to determine what you're able to do. So your identity is typically associated with one or more roles. And each of these roles imply that you have privileges to access or perform certain actions, or perhaps those roles are used to restrict you from doing certain things on the website. Now on the other side, as a developer, you get to determine the granularity of the roles, and you might have only one role for your entire website, and so basically everybody is authenticated, who's an authenticated user has access to all the resources equally. But in a more complicated scenario, you might have two or more roles, a basic and a premium role, and based on what role the user paid for, or what role you allow each of them to have, then you can allow or restrict their access to certain web pages, or even scraps of information on individual web pages in the website. Okay, so we're just about ready to begin. Before we get started, portions of this video are recorded from a Visual Basic perspective. Now, for those of you who are watching in C#, please be aware that all the functionality is exactly the same between the two versions of this project that I'm about to build, except where I point them out. Now, near the end, we're going to write some code, and it will be written specifically in C# for those of you who are watching the C# video. So let's go ahead and get started. So as you can see, I've created a new project called Lesson 09, and there's really nothing special about it at this point, but to set up membership, because we know we're going to need it for our website, we need to employ that ASP.NET configuration tool. So I'm going to go to Website, ASP.NET configuration, and after a moment or two, the website administration tool pops open. Now, at this point, what we want to do is turn to the Security tab on our tool. And after a moment or two, you should see a screen like this. Now, you might see a different screen that asks you whether you want to uh, enable Internet-based authentication or Windows-based authentication. If you see that screen, be sure to check Internet-based authentication. By selecting that, we're going to save all of our user credentials, the username and password information, and more inside of a SQL Server 2005 Express Edition database that's managed by our website administration tool. Now, sometimes that selection that I just described a moment ago can be made on this page that you currently see, and here we need to select an authentication type. We're going to select from the Internet, and then click the Done button. Okay, so once we see the page looking like this, where we have a user section and a role section, now we're ready to get started. First thing that I want to do is click the Enable Roles link on our Security tab. And now that I've enabled roles, I want to create a new role by selecting the Create or Manage Roles link. In this text box, I'm going to type in the new role. So I'm just going to type in here basic user. Now I could make this anything that I want to, any little token that would mean something to me or my website. In this case, I'm just going to stay very generic and just call them a basic user and click Add Role. Okay, so once I click the Add Role button, you can see the list of roles that are available from the list on the Security tab. You can see the role name. Here I can add or remove users to that role, or I can delete this role altogether. All right, I'm going to click the Security tab or use the back button in order to view this screen again. You can see now I have one role. I need to start creating some users. So to begin, I'm going to create one user for my website. I'm just going to create an admin user. And then I'm going to add some controls to a web page in order to allow users to create themselves in the future. So here I'm going to click Create User from the user box, and I'm going to start creating a new account. This one I'm just going to call admin. I'm going to give them a password. Now, be aware that you have to create a strong password here. There is a way to shut that option off, but essentially it has to consist of a certain number of alphanumeric characters. It has to contain at least one number. It has to also contain some non-alphanumeric characters as well. So you have to come up with something fairly original. Maybe you're not used to going to that length, but this describes a more safe password than just your typical, password is password sort of thing. So here we go. We'll create an email address, or actually we'll change this first one to admin@learnvisualstudio.net, and then we'll have a security question. What is your cat's name? And I think that we can use that. Now I also get to select whether this user or not is in one or more roles. Since I'm setting him up from this administration tool, I'm going to go ahead and select basic user and then click the Create User button. You can see we get a message that we've created this user successfully. I'll click the Continue button, and I can continue to create more accounts from here if I'd like. Now, it would be pretty difficult if I was administering a very popular website to read an email from somebody who says they want to access the website and basically have to type this in for each individual person to access. So we may want to set up a utility on our website that allows users to enter their own information in, and then we can decide whether or not they get to be basic users or whether they have no roles associated with their account. And we're going to do that in just a moment. So now we've got at least one user and we have at least one role. I think we can get started in actually developing our application. Now my goal is to write as little code as possible and just to exercise the controls that are available within the login toolbox. However, please understand that behind the scenes what's going on is the manipulation of this membership class API, and so you have full programmatic control and you can create your own versions of these controls that are more specialized to your specific needs. So if there's something here that doesn't quite work for what you need, don't worry about it. You can still use the underlying classes that these controls encapsulate. So what I want to do is start pretty simple. What I'm going to do is add another page. I'm going to call it Login and select the Add button. And on this Login page, I'm going to drag and drop a login control. Now, as you can see here, the login control looks a lot like every login that you've probably ever used for a website. It might be formatted a little crudely. However, we can adjust the way that it's formatted by converting this into a template and then changing the HTML for each of the individual elements, the login title, the username, password, labels, the remember me next time text box or checkbox rather, and so on. Or we can just select the auto format link, which will pop open the auto format dialog, and we can browse through the various formats that can be applied. And I'm going to select this professional format so that my login looks pretty neat. Okay, that's all we really need to do to the login control, except one more thing we'll need to do, and that is whenever a successful login has been accomplished, we want to set this destination page URL property by selecting the little ellipsis in the property box and then selecting a page on our website where the user will be sent to after a successful login. So after, in this particular case, since we're starting out simple, I'm just going to send them back to the default page and click the OK button. And we'll save that. Great. I'm going to close down the login page. And here we're at the default page. And let's take a look at some of the other controls. One of the first controls that we can take a look at is the actual login view, which allows us to make a differentiation between those people who are currently anonymous on our website versus those people who have been authenticated. So there are two different views in this login view. So what I can do in this view section here is type in this view is for people who have not yet logged in. Okay? Now I'm going to go to my little tasks window and select a different view, the logged in template, and I'm going to put in here this view is for people who have logged in successfully. Okay, great. Now let me do this. I'm going to make some space here. Whoops. Let's go ahead and close that. Let's make some space. And we'll make sure that we label this login view just so we can tell where we're at. And I also want to use the login status control. So I'm going to drag that from my toolbox as well, and this will tell somebody whether they're currently logged in, or if they are logged in, it will allow them to log out, so it keeps track of that. And then I'm also going to put in the login name control, so you can kind of see all these working together. And this will tell you the current name of the person who's logged in, so they can see their username here in this little label that's bound to the membership information for the current user. Okay, so let's go ahead and give this a try. We haven't really written any code, just set some properties and things of that nature. I'm going to make sure to have my default.asp selected. You'll recall after we try to run our application debug for the first time that it may pop open and ask us if we want to add an entry in the web.config for debugging purposes. And it does, so we'll click OK. And so the website that we currently see, we're on the default.aspx page. Notice that our login status control gives us the word login. We don't see any login name, and our login view is currently displaying the template for anonymous users. This view is for people who have not yet logged in. So I'm going to click the login link, and it will take us to our login page. Notice that it gives a return URL of lesson09/default.aspx. That's HTML encoded. Let's go ahead and put in our admin and then our password that we created, and then click the login button. And now it shoots us back to the default.aspx page. We can currently see that our login status control is set to log out. Why is it toggled to log out? Well, because we're currently logged in. That's great. And we can also view the login name, in this case admin, and then the login view is set to the template for those who have logged in successfully. Great. Now, one common scenario that happens often is that whenever people go to log in, they realize that they don't remember the original login information that was assigned to their account. So what we can do here is actually add another page. We're going to go to, let's go to add new item and select here. We're going to put password recovery and click the add button. And then on this particular page, this new password recovery page, we're going to simply drag and drop from our login section of our toolbox a password recovery control. Now we have some options here. For example, obviously the formatting, I'm going to select professional so that it looks like my login box. But then also we can change the question view and then the success view as well. Now I could have just as easily put this control on our login page, but I decided rather to put it in on its own page. That's really your decision as a developer how you want to go about doing this. So what we could do here is just create a hyperlink that says something to the effect that we want to allow them to recover their password. So here in the text we might put forgot password. So let's go ahead and start this application using the login.aspx page as our starting spot. Now, I'm not going to fully exercise this because I have not set up the email options for my particular machine. So basically what we can do though, or rather admin, it'll ask me for my cat's name. We'll just put in a fake name here, Bob, and see what happens. It'll tell us that the answer cannot be verified. Please try again. This time I'm going to put in Kitty, and whenever I hit submit, we're going to get an error, but that's because, again, I haven't set up my particular version of Windows XP to be able to access the internet and send email. So once you correctly configure ASP.NET and Windows XP to allow this functionality, then it will send an email from your account. Okay. Now the other thing that we might want to do, as we've identified earlier, is we don't want to have to enter each and every person's information every time that we sign up somebody new. So if we have just a general purpose website, we want to allow just general registration, then there's a great control that allows us to do that. So let's add another item here, and we're going to put signup.aspx. And let's look at our form. And what we're going to do here is drag and drop over the Create User Wizard. Okay, and as before, we can select the various steps that we want to configure or change the look and the feel of. We can also add or remove wizard steps, so if we want to collect additional information, we can do that by selecting Add or Remove Wizard Steps. We can also change the various steps, the various templates for those steps so that we can have a higher degree of fidelity when changing the look and the feel of those particular steps. But in this particular instance, I'm just going to leave everything the way that it is. Well, let me do this just to make sure everything looks about the same. We'll select our professional look. And now we'll go to the default page, and I'm going to add a link. And we'll put this, oh, I don't know, let's say right here. And we'll just call this sign up. And we will set the navigate URL to our new sign up page. So let's go ahead and save that and run the application. I'm going to click the sign up button for my default page. And here I'm going to create a new user. So let's go ahead and do that to borrow and we'll borrow this from Monty Python. And we'll click the Create User button. And it says that your account has been successfully created. We'll click the Continue button and nothing happens. That's because whenever we set up our sign up control, we did not change one of the options here. Let's see where it's at. I think it's at the top here, which is the continue destination page URL. So we could select this to go back to the default page once they finish creating a new account, or we can send them, probably would be more likely to send them to the login page, right? Or if they cancel, then we can send them to the default page. So we'll click that and save it. Now let's just run it real quick again. So we're on the sign up page probably at this point, and we can start to create a new user, and this time we'll go for Jim. Okay, I'm not really worried about some of this stuff. Okay, and so when we hit continue this time, it brings us to the login page, and here we can put in Jim and then our password, and then log in, and we can see that we're logged in as Jim, and so on. Okay, so very cool. So let's just do this real quick so that we perform some due diligence here and take a look at these new users within our website administration tool. You can see here immediately that we have 3 users, and if we manage those users, we can see a list of them here. We can even filter them by the letter that they start with. We can also search by username and email, put in that value, and then click Find User. We can also delete users from here. And we can also edit roles for a given user. Now in this particular case, Tabaro is not a basic user, but the admin is. If we click in, we can see that there is a checkbox in the basic user box. So we're going to leave these as 2 separate types of users. And the reason we're going to do that is because we want to extend the functionality of our application, because many times what we're going to want to do is not just use this login view in order to control who sees what content, but we're also going to want to have some more control over who is able to actually visit a given web page on the website. So what we can do in this particular case is add a new item. We're going to call this secure page. Yeah. .aspx and click the add button. Okay, and the next thing I also need to do is create a new page called unauthorized. And this will be kind of an error page. This will explain why the user cannot, is not permitted to view the secure page that we just created a few moments ago. And on this unauthorized page, let's go ahead and type in some text. And we'll do something like, you are unauthorized to view the secure page due to your lack of permissions. Great. And let's also do this. Let's put our login status control here on this page as well. And we'll come back to this in a little while. Okay. Okay, so I'm ready to write some code. The first thing I want to do is to make sure before anybody's allowed to view this page that they are authenticated, that they've actually logged in. So let's start there. What I'll do is create a form1 load event, and inside that form1 load event, I'm going to do something like this. If user.identity, all right, there we go. Identity.isAuthenticated equals false, then what we want to do is do a server.transfer. So we're going to send them immediately over to the login page. Okay, there we go. let's start there. And before I actually run this example, currently our login.aspx page is set to transfer upon a successful login to the default page, but we need to change that. We want them to come to the sign up page, to rather this new secure page that we've created if indeed they have logged in successfully. So I'm going to double click login from our Solution Explorer, and I'm also going to show you how to do something else while we're here. But my first order of business is to change this destination page URL property to secure page. And then the other thing that I want to do is also show you that we didn't, in fact, need to create this little hyperlink forgot password because the login control contains the ability to display something just like this using these the password recovery text and URL. We also can see here that there's a create user text and URL and a help page text and URL as well. So for this, what we want to do is change this to our password recovery. We'll change this text to forgot password. And then we'll just delete our link there. Okay, so very cool. Now let's go ahead and shut that down and run our application with secure page selected in the Solution Explorer. We'll log in. Now hold on, how did we get to the login page when we were navigating to securepage.aspx, as you can see in the address bar? Well, the reason is because we hit that line of code in the form load that said if the person is not authenticated, then you need a server.transfer them over to the login page. So server.transfer will just literally, instead of rendering HTML from the securepage.aspx, it will load up the login.aspx page in this particular case, and it will take all the code from that page and render it out to the user. So you don't see a change in the URL, but from a server perspective, what is sent to the user is the login.aspx page. Now, if you just want to redirect them so that, in essence, the address changes well, you can do instead a response.redirect instead of a server.transfer. So just a little bit of a heads up there. Okay, so let's go ahead and put in our password, click in the login button, and now we're at the secure page. Okay, it doesn't look like much, but we can tell that we're at the secure page this time because of the address. So let's go ahead and spice this up a little bit now that we know we can get here. So I'm going to open up secure page and view the design. And I'm going to put something at the very top like welcome to the secure page. And might even do something like, let's go ahead and put the login status here on this. And let's also, since you're here at the secure page, you should be able to now change your password. So we can drag and drop the change password control onto our secure page. And we can, just like all the other controls, change the formatting and also change the templates from the actual change password screen to the success screen, both of which are encoded within our control. Okay, so we're going to leave that as the way that it is. And I want to add one more wrinkle before we go ahead and load this up. So I'm going to go back to the source view of our securepage.aspx. And currently what we've done is merely allow everybody who has been authenticated to view this page, but we may want to restrict this to only those people within a given role. In our case, we created a role called basic user, and so we want to make sure that the user, the current person who's logged in, is a member of the basic user role. If they're not, we're going to transfer them over to the unauthorized.aspx page. So let's do that. If roles.is user in role, and we'll use the second version of this method, or just the first version, sorry. Is user in role basic user is the role name, equal to false, then we'll just take the shortcut for our if statement. We won't use the brackets but we'll do this. Server.transfer unauthorized.aspx. Now, let's go ahead and save this, and let's go ahead and try and log in with both of our user accounts. The Tabaro account will be, we should hit this line of code, line number 15. However, if we log in as an admin, we will be in the basic user role, so it should allow us to view the rest of the page. Let's go ahead and run our application. The first time through, I'm going to go through and as the admin, so let's try that and click Login. And notice that we're at the secure page, and we can even change our password here. So let's shut it down, and this time I'm going to go straight to the login page. Put in the username Tabaro and the password, log in, and notice I get to the unauthorized.aspx page, and again, a server transfer, so we don't see that in the address bar, but that's ultimately where we wound up. So you are unauthorized to view the secure page due to your lack of permissions. What lack of permissions? We're not in the basic user role. So I can also see here that I am currently logged in. It's not an issue of being authenticated. I am authenticated. They know that I am the Tabaro account. The problem is that I'm not authorized with my current set of permissions to be able to view that page. So I can then log out and try it again. Okay. So hopefully you can see how few lines of code that we've written in order to accomplish some really powerful functionality. Now in the past, in the previous versions of ASP.NET, we had to write a lot of this code ourselves, so it's really nice to have this available to us if we just need to throw something together really quickly. However, many of you will get to the point where you do not want to implement your membership functionality in your application in the exact way that is provided for you in the controls. Maybe you want to customize it a little bit. You want it to work a little bit differently, and you're going to need some finer fidelity control over how it works. If that's the case, then the good news is that you can use the rich programming model as we referred to at the very beginning of this video in order to accomplish that. So in addition to the user class and the roles class, which we've used so far, there's actually several other classes that we can utilize, and so we're going to talk about that right now. So at the heart of ASP.NET 2.0's membership functionality is the membership class. And the methods of the membership class provide the functionality necessary to create, edit, and even delete users. I can also get a list of users or find only those users that meet certain criteria, for example, by their username, email address, and so on. So you could use these classes to create your own website administration tool. Now the properties of the membership class can be used to set the various attributes about the length and the strength of the passwords for each of the users. And it also keeps information about the current user's password attempts, how long he or she has been on the website, and more. And then finally, it contains properties that keep track of the number of users currently on the website and other similar metrics. So that's quite a bit. It's pretty impressive. Now next up, we've already seen this a little bit already, is the role class, which we used back in our example to ensure that a user was a member of a given role. However, it's also great if you want to programmatically add users or remove users to certain roles, or you can also create roles on the fly and even more. And then finally is the user class, which we use to determine whether or not the current user has been successfully authenticated. There's also some additional classes, but as you begin to dive off the deep end and get immersed in utilizing this rich programming model, you're going to learn what they are and their purpose, so I'm not going to go into them right now. Hopefully you realize that you have a lot of flexibility to create a rich membership subsystem for your applications, and you don't really need to do all the heavy lifting, though, in those scenarios when the controls that we've been talking about, the login controls, will do just fine. So I'm really excited about this functionality, and I'm probably going to use it to rewrite major portions of my own personal website. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please visit learnvisualstudio.net for more in-depth discussions on this and other topics related to Visual Basic, C#, ASP.NET, and more. Thank you.